My dad used the last $400 I saved from skipping meals to protect the family, then sold my 6-year-old sister to pay off his gambling debts. When I screamed at him, he begged, "Please, if the police get involved, we're all dead by morning." I stayed silent. That was 3 years ago. Last week, he watched the judge read his sentence without blinking once, then cried when they took his handcuffs off for lunch. I was 13 when I asked my dad why me and my little sister hadn't eaten all day. "Honey, you know I'm trying to help our family win," he responded. I sighed and blinked hard to hold back the tears. You see, my dad was a textbook gambling addict. It started when I was 10. He'd buy scratch cards from the local gas station and practically run outside to scratch the number off. But I guess that lost its novelty, because just a few weeks later he was spending every weekend down at the local casino. I still remember the year he started, because it was the first time me and my sister, who was 6 at the time, didn't get anything for our birthday or Christmas. So I started stealing. Nothing crazy, just a cheap bracelet here and a purse there. It was almost impossible not to, because every time I got her a gift, her entire face would light up. "Really? For me?" she'd yell, before wrapping her tiny arms around me. Plus, my dad always promised that one day he would win big. He'd always joke about how 99% of gamblers quit before their big win, and reference stories he'd heard about people who won thousands of dollars in one single game. But by the time I turned 14, I hated myself, because I had let myself believe his lies so many times that disappointment became part of my daily routine. But even worse, I had promised Soso that our lives would get better soon, that daddy would go back to how he was before. Now, you may be wondering where our mom was during all this. Well, she sort of became the breadwinner of the family. She was working as a nurse for 14 hours a day and had no idea any of this was going on. And I wanted to tell her, but my dad had somehow convinced me that it would make things worse. But one night I had enough. I had spent the entire year acting like the parent of the house. I'd guide him to bed when he was staying up all night on GG poker, slamming his skull against the table repeatedly whenever he lost. I rarely ever ate more than one meal a day, because I always let Soso eat my food instead. But I was so desensitized to my family life that none of this was even that bad. My real breaking point came during Soso's Christmas play. She had reminded me and my dad about it over and over again, even put up a note on the fridge 2 months in advance about the date and time. My dad promised to meet me there. But on the day, as Soso came on stage to say her one and only line, she glanced at the empty chair beside me and burst into tears. I was seeing red. I texted my mom asking if we could talk when she got home later. "Of course, honey," she said with a kissing emoji. I took a deep breath and reassured myself that I was doing the right thing, that things would be better. But once again, I was let down. We were sitting at the table and I told her everything. The starvation, my forced parental role, the constant tears. She reached her arm across the table and put her perfectly manicured hand on mine. "Honey, no husband is as good at hiding things from his wife as he thinks. I already knew all this." I felt my eyes spark up. "So are things finally going to be different?" My tone was bright and hopeful. "Honey, we're a family. That means we have to pick up the slack for each other." And before I could say anything else, she kissed the top of my head and went to bed. As I lay in bed that night, I did the math in my head like I'd done 100 times before. 4 more years until I turned 18, 1,460 days of this, and if me and Soso didn't share a room together, I would have made barcodes all across my thighs. The next day, my dad took me on a trip to somewhere I'd never been before, and that was to rock bottom. He came home with a bruised eye and a nose pouring with red. "Honey, how much do you have in your savings account?" was the first thing he asked when I opened the door. I don't even know why I told the truth, but I did. $400. Yeah, I'm gonna need every single cent. I sighed. That was months of sacrificed food, clothes, and hours spent babysitting. It's to keep the family safe. I borrowed a lot of money, and as you can see, he then pointed to his face. "They're not very happy with me right now." I grabbed the cash behind the cupboard where I hid it and handed it to him. He cried and swore on Soso's life that he'd never gamble again. I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the voice screaming in my head. 2 days later, I woke up to Soso leaving the room. I immediately grabbed her and asked where the F she was going. "Daddy told me he's taking me to McDonald's, but he told me not to tell you because he said you'd be jealous." Relief washed over me, and I told her to have a good time before going back to sleep. But the next day, Soso was gone. Her bed was made. Her favorite stuffed animal was missing. When I screamed at my dad about where she was, he couldn't look at me. They said they'd unalive us all. I had no choice. She's with a nice family. I didn't let him finish. I was already dialing 911, but my dad was faster than I thought. He lunged at me and wrestled the phone from my hands. I tried to fight back, but he was stronger. He threw the phone against the wall and it shattered into pieces. He was begging me not to call anyone. Said if the police got involved, we'd all be dead by morning. I was screaming at him, asking what he'd done. Where was my sister? He kept saying he had no choice, that these people don't mess around. My mom walked through the door right then. She was home early from her shift. I ran to her crying about Soso being gone. She looked at my dad, then back at me. She told me to calm down and that we'd handle this as a family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Handle what? Our 6-year-old sister was missing. My dad had sold her or given her away or something. My mom guided me to the couch and sat between me and my dad. She said sometimes families have to make hard choices. I felt like I was going insane. What hard choice? Where was Soso? My dad finally started talking. He owed money to some very bad people, more than he could ever pay back. They gave him an ultimatum. Either they take everything, including our lives, or he gives them something valuable. I wanted to throw up. He sold my baby sister to pay gambling debts. My mom put her hand on my knee. She said Soso would have a better life now. These people found her a wealthy family who couldn't have kids. She'd go to private school, have her own room, everything we couldn't give her. I pushed her hand away and stood up. I told them they were both insane. You can't just sell a child. That's kidnapping. That's trafficking. My dad said it wasn't like that. The family paid an adoption fee. It was all very civilized. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Adoption fee? To criminals? I needed to find proof. I needed to know where she was. I told them I was going to bed. They seemed relieved. My mom said we'd all feel better in the morning. I went to my room and waited. I could hear them talking in hushed voices. After an hour, they went to their room. I waited another hour to be sure. Then I crept out to my dad's office. He never let anyone in there. The door was locked, but I knew where he hid the spare key. Inside the fake plant by the window. I searched through his desk drawers. Most of it was old bills and casino receipts. Then I found a folder hidden under some tax papers. Inside were documents, bank transfers, an address in another state, photos of Soso that I'd never seen before, professional-looking ones, like for a catalog. There was a contract of sorts. It listed Soso's age, weight, height, medical history, like she was livestock. The buyer's name was there too, Albert and Catherine Morrison. The address was about 8 hours away by car. I took photos of everything with my mom's old digital camera. I couldn't use my phone since my dad had destroyed it. I put everything back exactly as I found it and snuck back to my room. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Soso waking up with strangers, wondering where I was, why I wasn't there to protect her. The next morning, I showed my mom the photos I'd taken. I thought seeing actual evidence would snap her out of it. She looked at them calmly. Then she deleted them from the camera. She said I needed to let this go. Soso was gone and we needed to move forward as a family. I asked her how she could be so heartless. She was supposed to protect us. She said she was protecting us. From poverty, from violence, from a worse fate. She said the Morrisons were good people who would give Soso opportunities. Private schools, college, a real future. I realized then that she had known. She had known the whole time. This wasn't my dad going behind her back. They had planned this together. I felt sick. These were supposed to be my parents. The people who loved us most in the world. And they had sold my sister like she was nothing. I needed to get out of that house. I needed to find Soso. But I had no money, no car, no phone. I was trapped. That night, I pretended everything was fine. I ate dinner with them, watched TV, acted like I had accepted their insanity. My mom seemed pleased. She kept saying how mature I was being, how proud she was that I understood. My dad was quiet. He couldn't look at me. Around midnight, I heard them go to bed. I had been planning all day. I took my mom's car keys from her purse, her credit card too, and her phone. I wrote a note saying I was going to Amber's house for the weekend. Amber was a friend from school. They'd believe it. I packed a backpack with clothes and the little food I could find. Then I slipped out the back door. The car started loud in the quiet night. I held my breath, waiting for lights to come on, but nothing happened. I pulled out of the driveway and onto the empty street. I had never driven this far before, only around the neighborhood when my mom let me practice, but I had no choice. I plugged the address into the GPS on my mom's phone. 8 hours and 3 minutes. I could do this. I had to do this. For Soso. I drove through the night, stopping only for gas. Used my mom's credit card and prayed she wouldn't check her statement until later. The highway was mostly empty, just me and truckers and the occasional car passing by. I kept myself awake by thinking about Soso, about what I'd say when I found her, about how I'd get her back. The sun was coming up when I finally saw the exit for the town. My hands were shaking from exhaustion and too much gas station coffee. I followed the GPS through suburban streets. Nice houses with big lawns, the kind of neighborhood we'd never live in. Then I saw it. 142 Maple Drive, a white house with blue shutters, 2 cars in the driveway. I parked across the street and just stared. Soso was in there. My baby sister was behind those walls with strangers. I didn't have a plan. Not really. I couldn't just knock on the door. Hey, you bought my sister from criminals? Can I have her back? They'd call the cops. Or worse, call the people my dad owed money to. I needed to see her first, make sure she was okay, then figure out what to do. I walked around the block trying to look casual. There was an alley behind the houses. I crept along until I found their backyard. High fence, but I could see through the slats. There was a swing set, brand new looking, and toys scattered on the grass. Rich people toys, the kind Soso always wanted but we could never afford. I heard a door open. My heart stopped. Then I saw her. Soso came running out in a pink dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was in pigtails with matching ribbons. She looked clean, federal, happy even. A woman followed her out. Catherine, I assumed. Blonde hair, yoga pants, holding a juice box. She called Soso sweetie and handed her the drink. I wanted to scream, to jump the fence and grab my sister, but I just watched. Soso was laughing, playing on the swing, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't been sold just days ago, like she didn't miss me at all. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe this was better for her. I shook that thought away. This was wrong. You can't buy children. I needed to get closer, to let Soso see me. Maybe if she saw me, she'd remember. She'd want to come home. I went back to the front of the house, tried to think. Then I saw Soso through the living room window. She was watching TV, sitting on a leather couch. I walked up the driveway like I belonged there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I got to the window, tapped on it gently. Soso turned. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. She smiled and waved, started to get up. Then Catherine appeared. She saw me and her face changed. From confused to angry to scared. She grabbed Soso and pulled her away from the window. The front door flew open. A man stood there. Albert, probably. He was big, intimidating. He asked what I was doing on his property. I said I was looking for my sister. He said I had the wrong house. No kids here. I pointed to the window where I'd just seen Soso. He stepped forward, blocking the doorway. Told me to leave before he called the police. I said, go ahead. Call them. Tell them how you bought a 6-year-old girl. His face went pale. He knew that I knew. Catherine appeared behind him, holding Soso. My sister reached for me, but Catherine held her tight. Albert said they adopted her legally. Had all the paperwork. I laughed. From who? The mob? He said it was a private adoption. All very legitimate. I pulled out my mom's phone. Said I had proof. Documents showing they paid criminals for a child. I was bluffing. I didn't have anything on the phone, but they didn't know that. Catherine whispered something to Albert. He nodded. Told me to come inside so we could talk. I knew it was stupid, going into their house, but Soso was right there. I couldn't leave without her. They led me to the kitchen. Soso tried to come to me, but Catherine took her upstairs. I heard my sister crying, calling my name. It took everything I had not to run after them. Albert sat across from me at their fancy granite counter. He said they couldn't have children. They'd tried for years, spent thousands on treatments. Then someone told them about a man who could help, a man who found children who needed homes. I asked if he meant children who were stolen from their families. He said that's not how it was explained to them. They were told Soso was unwanted, that her parents couldn't afford her, that they were doing a good thing, giving her a better life. I wanted to believe he was that stupid, that naive, but nobody's that dumb. You don't pay cash to shady people for a kid and think it's normal. He knew. They both knew. They just didn't care. I told him Soso had a family, a sister who loved her, parents who... I couldn't finish that sentence. He said they'd paid a lot of money, $50,000. That Soso was theirs now, legal or not. I said I'd go to the police, the FBI, someone. He laughed, said I was a kid, a runaway. Nobody would believe me, and even if they did, his lawyers would handle it. He had connections, money. What did I have? He was right. I was just some teenager who stole a car and drove 8 hours. No proof except my word. No money for lawyers. No adults on my side. But I had something. I started recording on my mom's phone, hid it in my lap under the table. I asked him to repeat what he just said. About paying $50,000. About knowing it wasn't legal. He was cocky. Thought he'd already won. He said it all again. How they'd bought So-So. How nobody could prove anything. How she was better off with them anyway. I thanked him for his honesty and stood up. He grabbed my wrist. Hard. Asked where I thought I was going. I said I was leaving. He could keep So-So for now, but I'd be back. With police, reporters, everyone. He squeezed tighter. Said that would be a mistake. That the people he bought her from wouldn't like attention. That bad things happened to kids who caused problems. I pulled free and ran for the door. He chased me, but I was faster. Got to the car and peeled out. I drove for an hour before stopping. My hands were shaking too bad to keep going. I pulled into a rest stop and looked at the recording. It was all there. His confession. Proof they'd bought my sister. I uploaded it to everything. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, tagged local news stations, Child Protective Services, anyone I could think of. Added a caption explaining everything. How my parents sold my sister. How these people bought her. How she was being held in that house. Then I waited. The phone started ringing within minutes. My mom. I didn't answer. Then my dad. Then numbers I didn't recognize. Text messages flooded in. Some supportive. Some calling me a liar. Some threatening. The video was spreading. Being shared. People were angry. Good. Let them be angry. Maybe someone would actually do something. Then a text from my mom. Just an address. A motel about 2 hours away. And 3 words. Come here now. I knew it was a trap. Or at least dangerous. But I was exhausted. Out of money. Out of options. And maybe, just maybe, they'd realized how insane this all was. Maybe they wanted to help get So-So back. I drove to the motel. It was the kind of place that rented by the hour. Stained walls, broken signs, cars with no plates. My parents' car was parked outside room 12, but there was another car too. Black sedan, tinted windows. My stomach dropped. I knocked on the door. My dad opened it. His face was worse than before. Both eyes black now, lips split. He pulled me inside quickly. The room was small. 2 beds, a TV, mold on the ceiling. My mom sat on one bed. She looked tired, scared. And in the corner, a man I didn't recognize. Tall, thin, expensive suit that didn't match the crappy motel. He smiled when he saw me. Not a nice smile. He introduced himself as Mr. Chen. Said he was a problem solver. That my family had created a problem, and he was here to solve it. I asked if he was the one who bought my sister. He laughed. Said he didn't buy children. He facilitated transactions, connected people with needs to people with solutions. Very civilized, very professional, until someone made it uncivilized. He pulled out his phone, showed me my video. It had been viewed thousands of times already. He said this was unfortunate, bad for business, made people nervous, asked questions. He couldn't have that, so we were going to fix it, together, as a family. I asked what he wanted me to do. He said it was simple. Delete the video, post a retraction, say it was all a misunderstanding, a family dispute taken out of context. So-So was safe and happy with relatives. End of story. I said no. He sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. He nodded to my dad. My dad stood up and walked over to me. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. He said, please, just do what Mr. Chen asked. Make this go away. We could be a family again. Just the 3 of us. Like So-So never existed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Forget So-So? Pretend she was never born? I told him he was sick. He slapped me. Hard. First time he'd ever hit me. My mom gasped, but didn't move. Mr. Chen said violence wasn't necessary. We were reasonable people. He pulled out a gun, set it on the table, said it was just for emphasis. To help me understand the seriousness of the situation. People who interfered with his business had accidents. Fell downstairs, crashed their cars, disappeared. He'd hate for something to happen to such a young girl, or her parents, or her sister. The last word hung in the air. He knew where So-So was. Of course he did. He'd put her there. I asked what would happen to So-So if I did what he wanted. He said nothing. She'd grow up with the Morrisons, have a good life, maybe even forget she had another family. Kids were resilient like that. But if I kept causing problems, well, the Morrisons might decide they didn't want her anymore, might return her. And returned merchandise was often damaged in shipping. I felt sick. He was threatening a 6-year-old, using her as leverage. My mom finally spoke, begged me to just do it, delete the video, move on, think of So-So's safety. My dad agreed, said we'd get through this together, start fresh somewhere new, maybe even have another baby, replace the one we lost. I looked at these people who were supposed to be my parents, who were supposed to protect us, and I realized they were already gone, had been gone for a long time. The gambling took my dad, the fear took my mom, and now they wanted me to give up too, but I couldn't. So-So needed someone to fight for her, even if it meant risking everything. I picked up my mom's phone. Mr. Chen smiled, thinking he'd won. I opened the video. My finger hovered over delete. Then I did something else. I went live, Facebook Live, pointed the camera at Mr. Chen, at his gun on the table, at my parents' struck faces, started talking fast, explaining where I was, what was happening, who these people were. Mr. Chen lunged for the phone, but I dodged, kept filming, kept talking. My dad tried to grab me, but I kicked him. Sorry, Dad. My mom was crying, begging me to stop, but I kept going. Told everyone watching to call police. Gave the motel address, room number. Said if anything happened to me or So-So, these were the people responsible. Mr. Chen pulled out his own phone, started making calls, angry calls in a language I didn't understand. He grabbed his gun, pointed it at me, told me to stop recording. Now I kept the camera on him. Said go ahead. Shoot a teenager on live video. See how that works out for your business. He hesitated. We could already hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. Someone had called. People were watching, caring, doing something. Mr. Chen swore. Told my parents they better fix this. Then he left. Just walked out like nothing happened. My parents tried to follow, but I blocked the door. Told them they weren't going anywhere. They were going to wait for the police. Tell them everything. My dad tried to push past me, but he was weak, broken. My mom just collapsed on the bed, crying about how I'd ruined everything, how we were all dead now. The sirens got louder, closer. Blue and red lights filled the room through the thin curtains. Police officers came in with GNs drawn. I put my hands up, still holding the phone, still recording. Told them everything. About So-So, the Morrisons, Mr. Chen, my parents. They separated us, took statements, found the GN. Mr. Chen left behind, his fingerprints all over it. More police arrived, detectives, social workers. The motel parking lot became a crime scene. I gave them the address where Soso was, begged them to get her. They said units were already on the way. Someone had seen my first video, connected it to reports of suspicious activity at that address. The Morrisons were in custody. Soso was safe, was being brought to the station. I almost collapsed with relief. She was okay. We'd be okay. A social worker sat with me, asked about relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone who could take us. I remembered my mom's mother, Grandma Ann. She lived a few states away. We hadn't seen her in years. My mom said she was judgmental, difficult, but maybe that's exactly what we needed. They called her, explained the situation. She was in her car within an hour, driving through the night just like I had. To save her granddaughters from the mess her daughter had made, I waited at the station, gave more statements, answered more questions, watched my parents get arrested. They looked small in handcuffs. Pathetic. Part of me felt bad. Most of me didn't. They'd sold my sister, chosen money over their own child. Then I heard her. Soso's voice echoing down the hallway, calling my name. I ran toward the sound. She broke free from the social worker holding her hand and met me halfway. I dropped to my knees and caught her, held her so tight I was afraid I'd break her. She was crying, saying she was scared. The strange people wouldn't let her leave, wouldn't let her call me, but she knew I'd come. She always knew I'd find her. Grandma Ann arrived as the sun was coming up. She looked older than I remembered. Gray hair, deep lines on her face, but her eyes were sharp, angry. She hugged us both, promised we were safe now. Then she saw my parents in the holding cell. The disappointment on her face was worse than anger. She'd raised my mom better than this, taught her right from wrong. Where had she gone so wrong? My mom couldn't meet her eyes. The next few days were a blur. Paperwork, court hearings, custody arrangements. Grandma Ann fought for us, hired lawyers with her retirement savings, wouldn't let anyone separate us or put us in foster care. We were family. We stayed together. The Morrisons were charged with human trafficking. They tried to claim ignorance, but my recording destroyed that defense. They took a plea deal, 5 years each. Mr. Chen was harder to catch, but the GN, the video, witness statements, it was enough. They got him on trafficking, extortion, weapons charges, 15 years minimum. His whole operation fell apart. Other children were found. Other families reunited. My video had done more than save Soso. It had saved kids I'd never even know about. My parents' trials were harder to watch. They looked so normal in their orange jumpsuits, like any other couple who'd made mistakes. My dad got 5 years. Could have been worse, but he cooperated. Gave up names, dates, amounts, helped police understand how people like Mr. Chen operated, how they found desperate parents, exploited them. My mom got 3 years. Her lawyer argued she was manipulated, afraid, a victim too. Maybe she was, but she was supposed to protect us. She chose not to. That was on her. During the sentencing, she tried to catch my eye. I looked away. Grandma Ann's house was small but safe. She made real dinners and set rules, stuff we never had. Soso had nightmares and I slept on her floor, promising never to leave her again. We started new schools, made new friends, and slowly learned to trust that things could be normal. Soso went to therapy and drew pictures of our family, sometimes including our parents, sometimes not. Grandma took us to visit them once for closure. Dad apologized, saying he was getting help. Mom was cold, blaming me for everything. Grandma ended the visit and said we wouldn't return until Mom took responsibility. That was 2 years ago. We haven't been back. Now I'm 18 and Soso's legal guardian, working at a grocery store and saving for college. Soso's 10, loves soccer, and wants to be a doctor. She barely remembers that terrible week, just that I saved her, and that's enough. Grandma is older but still fierce, teaching us both practical skills and how to trust again. I still check on Soso at night, still worry, but the therapist says that's normal. Trauma fades, even if it never disappears entirely. I'm graduating high school, and for the first time, we actually feel like a family. Maybe not the one we were born with, but the one we chose, and the one that chose us back. I still think about my parents sometimes, but mostly I don't. We're busy living, studying, working, building something better. Soso is safe and happy, and so am I. That night I left home. I stopped being a kid, not because I had to, but because I chose to. We survived, and we're okay. This is our happy beginning, not just an ending. Family isn't blood, it's who shows up and stays, even when it's hard. We're proof of that.